Hey everyone, welcome back to Wonderland Wednesday. If you're just joining us, this episode is part 2 of our review of the 1966 BBC version of Alice in Wonderland. I'll have a link to the first part in the card or in the description below. If you've been subscribed to my channel, you may have noticed that last week's Wonderland Wednesday didn't go up until Saturday. Apparently the BBC is fiercely protective over this movie to the point of completely blocking any video containing footage from it. It took me 7 re-edits to get the first video up, so hopefully I learned enough during that debacle to be able to edit this one well enough that it won't be taken down. I guess if this video ends up being late as well, then you'll know why. Anyway, let's get back to the review. Thanks for watching.
After this, you have the painting the roses red, which he didn't actually look like he was putting any paint on the roses at all.
He's just sort of dabbing at him with a paintbrush. And of course these aren't cards again, these are people.
This part was a little bit drawn out because all of a sudden it's like this whole parade of...
A royal procession.
But more like a parade. And as they get closer, which takes a little while...
It's forever. They're off in the distance, marching towards them with all these music, and it's just... The camera is like fixed on them and it just takes forever, and then it kind of fades in when they're a little bit closer, and then it fades in when they're a little bit closer, and then they just keep getting closer and closer. Finally Alice seems to like give up and walks towards them.
But this was different though, because it's like she starts to march, but she marches in between the lines until she gets to the Red Queen, King, and their son, who acts like he's
mentally disabled.
Right?
I don't know what the deal with their son was.
Well, he acts stupid and gluttonous, but his father says, but he's very tall. You know, like this is the redeeming factor for how ridiculous he is.
It was another one of those things where we kind of wondered, is this supposed to mean something? Is this
is this a historical feeling that this person had about one of the sons of the monarchy? I do not understand this. Maybe we don't need to. Maybe he was just supposed to represent the Knave of Hearts who stole the tarts.
Yeah.
Because you get that impression in the courtroom scene. He is the accused,
yeah.
And he's acting like he can prove his innocence, but he doesn't seem too worried about it. Then, of course, the cards are in trouble, and they're supposed to be beheaded. And here's a really odd thing. There's like this whole funeral procession
where they're saying immortal, invisible.
Somewhere in there they transition into the croquet scene, but it's almost like it's sort of blended together.
Yeah.
There's this random guy in a wheelchair down in a creek trying to play croquet with the flamingo. People up on the banks.
They're just sort of whacking at things with these fake flamingos.
And then it's almost like this party is half asleep or something. They're all just sort of sitting or standing around, which is kind of true to what could happen in a long drawn out summer party, but it was kind of odd.
It was just another one of those scenes that felt like it took too long, which there were quite a few of those scenes. They were not bad scenes, it was just like so slow.
They have the part with the cat's head showing up in the sky and wanting to behead the cat, and that's where you figure out that she was talking to the cat earlier. And the Duchess comes onto the scene, and while it's still a middle-aged man, they do seem to have a fairly normal dialogue from the book, but it all seems to be happening in her head. I don't know how much of it
This was another very confusing thing, because it seemed like she was thinking everything, because her mouth was not moving.
But the Duchess was still talking to her, and the Duchess was literally talking. You weren't just hearing the Duchess's thoughts.
Yes, she would say something, and then the Duchess would respond.
But
she wouldn't.
But Alice could also have her own thoughts without the Duchess hearing them. This did not make sense.
It was so confusing.
And then the Queen comes along, and there's the whole part with either you or your head must be off. And instead of acting scared, the Duchess starts to leave and then turns around and does sort of a type.
It does this.
I don't know.
Whatever that means.
We don't know what that means, so if we just did something really horrible, we're innocent. I want to know what that means, because I know that I know there's a story, I think, by Mark Twain that involves that gesture, but I don't know if it's just some form of, it's some form of disrespect. I don't know.
That's all we know, that's what it was trying to convey, and that's all we know about it.
If you know what that means, please leave a comment.
Yeah.
Enlighten us. So the Duchess is off, and then it's time to transition into the Mock Turtle. The Mock Turtle, of course, just a regular man, takes her down to the beach. This scene, one of the things that I actually kind of liked about it was they go into the dance part. These men might have been in, say, their 50s. They don't have their shoes on, and they have their pant legs rolled up, and they go dancing around at the shore's edge. And I liked it. I liked seeing them let their hair down like that for that scene.
I thought it took too long.
But you don't see that in the other versions. You always have these big costumes, and I liked it. And then you have Alice. I don't know if she's having telepathic communication here, or...
I don't know what was going on. She's basically whispering to herself, it's time for the trial.
And this is not my favorite trial scene. This was...
so strange.
So weird.
It opens with a hymn, again. I think it was Immortal Invisible. And...
But you pan around the courtroom and you have all these people. You have the random dude shaving. You have a farmer doing his farming in there, and somebody who looks like just a random pedestrian that you might find on the Victorian streets. It just looked like they were infusing everyday Victorian life into this courtroom where it didn't belong, but they were trying to be metaphorical or something.
Another metaphor that, if it was a metaphor, we didn't understand it.
And you have the son, the king's son, up in a seat eating stuff. Somewhere in there, you actually get going with the trial, which it didn't take too long, I guess, but you had more of a build-up than you do in some films. First witness is the Mad Hatter. Perfectly normal. But when he comes in, he keeps coming backwards and forwards, and there are all of these horse noises.
And the camera is panning in and out while he's backing up and going forward. Very strange.
Where did they get that? What on earth is the metaphor for that? And this motion seems to suck the king right out of his seat to where the guy, some attendant or something, has to try and get a hold of him and help him out. They get themselves together, and the Mad Hatter in this version is slow of speech. This takes too long. He's a pleasant fellow, but it didn't need to take this long. They have the cook come along, but she doesn't shake pepper everywhere. She's a little bit difficult, doesn't get into any trouble, and leaves.
At some point, too, they have a break for a song. And I don't think that there was any one song that it was supposed to be. I was expecting Mortal Invisible again.
It was so weird. It was like really bad sing-along singing.
Yeah. Her sister came through and said it sounds like church.
Not always.
Yeah,
but if you have a group of people, whether it's caroling or just any kind of group sing, there was no organization, and they were probably being purposefully bad.
Oh, it was very purposefully bad. It was very bad. I think they were singing multiple different songs all at the same time.
This was supposed to be refreshing or something? I have no idea.
And they even had like a thing on the wall that said hymn numbers and then some numbers. So like, I was wondering if this is like supposed to be church and a trial, because they opened with the song, they took a break for a song, they had hymn numbers listed on the wall.
Oh, wow. I hadn't even thought of that. Another thing that's odd about this is that Alice starts to teleport around the courtroom as well as shrinking and growing. But she seems to, and this would make sense if you were dreaming it, but another thing that's visually odd is that at some point you have her standing there, but you also have her reflection in a mirror, but the mirror is, her reflection in the mirror is doing different things from what she's doing.
And the mirror isn't even facing her. It's
no.
Both her and the mirror are facing the camera, and you have the shrinking and growing, and appearing in different places in the courtroom. The only explanation we have for this is that it's a dream when we don't know if it was supposed to mean anything.
Another thing that I thought was really, that is really different about this version is that the king takes center stage in this trial. The Queen is doing
The Queen was doing needlework. She was embroidering something.
and it's only till I think it's only at the end of the trial
Yeah.
that she really gets worked up and she's screeching,
Off with her head, off with her head,
For
off with
Alice,
her head, off with her head.
which transitions into chicken noises, and Alice wakes up and there were bird noises coming from
Yeah. So
the
it was
farm.
like, was it supposed to mean they were near a farm and all the animal noises were influencing her dream and that's why she kept hearing them throughout her dream?
I would guess so, but there may have been metaphor woven in there as well. And then the movie begins and ends with what I think is supposed to be sort of poetic
Yeah.
prose.
Yeah.
And she's talking about, at the end, she's talking about how things aren't the same as they were of yore, and you're like, yes, your reality needed to change. And it ends. But one of the best parts of the film is the end, because it transitions into all of these illustrations, and a lot of them I really liked.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think that it said that they were actually taken from Lewis Carroll's original manuscript.
And then it's accompanied by this Indian music, which I guess both of those things kind of fit with the film that came before it.
Yeah, I don't know. The Indian music was weird, but I actually liked it. I liked it a lot.
There were one or more points where it's kind of like all you're missing is a bead curtain, a little leather bag. I don't know. You do get 60s vibe in with all of this strange Victorian era stuff.
Yeah.
So overall,
I actually really liked this one. I would probably recommend it. It's probably on my lower end of my favorite ones, but it was really weird, and I actually liked how weird it was.
I don't know how likely I would be to watch this one again. I think there were interesting parts in it and funny parts, but I didn't fully appreciate all of the strange things that
That's
they
true.
did with it.
I guess I would say that I recommend it with a caveat if you really like weird things. If you don't really like weird things, don't bother with this movie.
If I understood better what the person was trying to communicate through this version, maybe I would like it better. I love how much they incorporate natural beauty into it. There were things that just didn't do it for me, I guess.
It was very confusing, and I don't understand most of it. But I still liked it. I can't explain it. I liked it despite being confused.
Do you want to know what's terrible? I think I like the Czech version better.
That doesn't have to be terrible. I don't know which one I liked better either. I don't know. I liked different things about both films for different reasons.
Okay.
I guess that's all for today.
We don't know what we're watching next. You get to be surprised.
Yeah. So
See you next time.
we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.